Hello, and a warm welcome to our weekly show, Love Athletics. In this program, we bring you the latest highlights from our sport with expert input from different continental areas. And we're delighted to have as our guest today Nigerian journalist Yemi Olus-Galadima. Hello, Yemi. Lovely to see you, and a big thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on the Love Athletics show, Anna. It's a pleasure being here and talking athletics with you.
Now, Yemi, I've known you for many years, but never asked you what motivated you to get involved in athletics and start a career as a sports journalist.
Thank you for your question. So while growing up, there were so many things I wanted to become or I wanted to do when I grew up. As a child, I wanted to be a pilot. Then at another time, I wanted to be a lawyer, a nurse, different things. But of course, I didn't get to do any of those things eventually. So after I finished from college or from the university here in Nigeria, of course, in trying to look for a job, I got a job with a media outfit. It was going to be a new newspaper that was just about to start, and then they employed some of us as their first batch of employees. So they took us through journalism training, and after that, I was still trying to decide, okay, what beat was I going to cover? Would it be entertainment or judiciary? It didn't even occur to me at the time, like, okay, sports journalism, that was not even on my mind at all. Because at that time, we didn't really have many women in Nigeria who were sports journalists. There were just a few of them who were quite popular. I can remember just maybe about two or three, but not so many of them. So it didn't even cross my mind as a viable option at the time that I could be a sports journalist. But I remember one day in the newsroom, our publisher walked in, and while talking with people, he just mentioned how it would be interesting to have a few female reporters on the sports desk. And when he said that, it was like a bell just went on, a bulb just went on in my head. Like, okay, I mean, you love sports, right from childhood. I'd always loved sports, and I'd even participated a bit, in primary and high school. I ran, I played football. So I really loved sports growing up. I followed football matches and all of that. So when he just mentioned the possibility of some female reporters being a part of a sports desk, I just thought to myself, yeah, I can do this, like it actually sounded interesting. And so I went to meet the sports editor at the time, and that was Oluka Thomas, and of course you know him. So he was my first editor. He was virtually the one who trained me, on the job. And so I went to meet him to tell him I was interested in joining the sports desk, to be a sports reporter. And so he gave me an assignment. He told me to go to the National Stadium in Lagos that weekend on a Saturday, asked me to go there and observe everything that was happening at the stadium, and then at the end of the day, I should write a report about the things I saw at the stadium. So I did that weekend. I went to the stadium, saw a lot of people jogging, saw different people, all sorts of things happening at the stadium, and then I wrote a report at the end of the day. Of course, he had to make a lot of corrections since that was my first time, of formally writing the sports report, more or less. But then he trained me, so I began to learn the ropes under him. He was my first editor. And then, of course, as someone who was really into athletics at the time, that's talking about my former editor, Olus-Galadima Thomas, most of the assignments he sent me on as a reporter were athletics based. So, for example, my first major event that I covered as a young reporter was what we call the National Sports Festival in Nigeria. It's like our mini Olympics, is a multi-sport event. So all sorts of sports, athletics, football, taekwondo, any sport you can think of usually holds during the sports festival. And so when I went to cover the sports festival, I just noticed that, he would keep on asking me, okay, what happened in athletics? What happened in athletics? What have they not started? Why have you not mentioned anything, about athletics? So it was from there I began to notice that yes, he was really someone who was into athletics, and that also ignited my own interest in track and field as well. Because even as a child, watching the Olympics while I was growing up, At the time, I usually thought that athletics was the only event at the Olympics. It was when I got much older, I got to know that athletics or track and field was not the only event at the Olympics. But growing up, I thought that was the only sport at the Olympics. So, but then, based on how interested he was in athletics, I also became that interested in athletics. And so that's why it's become my forte now. So even though I'm a sports reporter, I would always say I'm a sports reporter with a bias for athletics. So that was how I became a sports reporter and an athletics reporter as well. And I've been doing that for about 14 years now, and I have no regrets whatsoever. I've really enjoyed being a sports reporter. So that was how I got into it.
And what were the three favorite moments in the course of your career?
About the three favorite moments in the course of my career, three favorite athletics moments. It's going to be tough to pick one in particular because I've had so many great moments covering the sport, of track and field. But one that stands out for me was my first ever international outing as a journalist. That was the 2012 African Championships in Port Novo in Republic of Benin. And Anna, that was the first time I met you, during the media workshop organized by the IAAF then. So Benin was my first experience covering an international competition. It was the African Senior Championships. And for me, that was such a surreal moment because for the first time, I was getting to see some of these athletes physically, people we had only read about, and then getting to see them compete was really an exciting moment for me. I remember that one of the top athletes in Africa at that time was Amantle Moncho, and someone like Isaac Makwala was just starting out at the time as well, so watching people like that compete was really very exciting. And then I remember that year was the year Oscar Pistorius, who was a para athlete, came to compete at the African Championships. And I remember the atmosphere in the stadium on that day. Anytime he had to run, how everyone will stand up and give him a standing ovation as he competed, with the able-bodied athletes. And it was such, like, the atmosphere was really very exciting. So I can never forget the African Championships in 2012 in Port Novo because that was my first international outing as a journalist. So it was a great one for me. Another highlight in my athletics career was covering the Tokyo Olympics last year. Of course, as a sports reporter, it's always the desire to be at the Olympics, and Tokyo was my first Olympics. So being there at the stadium was a memorable experience for me. And then, especially because Nigeria's Ezekiel also won a medal in the women's long jump at the Olympics in Tokyo. So watching her win a medal was really an exciting moment for me. It was Nigeria's first medal at the Olympics in track and field since 2008 in Beijing, when Blessing Okagbare and the women's 4x1 team won medals. So yeah, that was another exciting moment for me in my athletics coverage. And then it's hard to pick a third exciting moment, and I'll just say that anytime the Nigerian anthem is being played anywhere at an athletics event is always an emotional moment for me because getting to hear your anthem being played at an international event is something really huge. So each time the Nigerian anthem is played at an event is always very exciting for me. At any competition, it doesn't matter what competition it is, whether the African Championships, the African Games, World Under 20 Championships, Olympics, wherever, as long as I can hear my country's anthem being played, it's always very nice and really exciting for me.
Thank you, Yemi. Now, what about your favorite athletics moments so far this year?
Just like the previous question, it's going to be very difficult to pick my top moments from 2022 because we're just in May, but there have already been a lot of exciting developments, a lot of exciting performances from athletes across the world. And then, but of course, I'll be a bit biased by starting with like the Nigerian athletes I'm really impressed with so far. And let's start with the lady of the moment, Favour Ofili, who is doing remarkable things on the track. It's very exciting to see or to watch Favour Ofili evolve into the athlete she is now. And what's even more exciting is the fact that we've not seen all there is to Favour Ofili. She's been really remarkable this year. All the times she's set, looking at the 100 meters, looking at the 200 meters. And then this was someone who started out as a quarter miler, as a 400-meter runner. And now she's not even done so much of the 400. She's been running more of the 100 and 200. And then seeing her remarkable times in the 100, when she first clocked 11 seconds, and then now, her new time of 10.93. And you're just like, wow. And then looking at what she did in the 200 meters as well, running a Nigerian record, an NCAA record of 21.96 seconds in the 200 meters. I mean, Favor is something else, absolutely. And it's just a delight watching her and seeing all that she's doing. And I keep wondering, what more does she have to offer? Now, Favor has qualified for the 100 and 200 at the World Championships. And I now wonder which of the events she's actually going to run or competing at the World Championships in Oregon. So we'll wait and see. And then winning the Southeast Conference Championships, winning the 100, 200, and 4x1. I mean, there's just, I have no words really. And then also watching another Nigerian Favor as she also win the men's 100 meters at the Southeast Conference Championships as well, 10:04. It was a personal best for Favor. So yeah, Favor, two Nigerians, named Favor, won the men and women's 100 meters. And it's really exciting. And not just them, but seeing what other Nigerian athletes in the US are doing. I mean, it's really, really very impressive. I'll also talk about Ezekiel Nathaniel, who ran a national record in the men's 400 meters hurdles. Ezekiel Nathaniel is at Baylor University, and he broke a 35-year-old Nigerian record, Harry Amike's former record, in the 400 meters hurdles, and he's qualified for the World Championships. This will be Nigeria's first 400 meters hurdler in the men's event since Beijing 2015. That's at the World Championships. So I see a lot of Nigerian athletes making history every day. And then, of course, another Nigerian athlete, Imalbong Uko, who also qualified for the World Championships. She's the first Nigerian quarter miler, male or female, to qualify for the Oregon World Championships. She ran 51.24 seconds last weekend. So I just see a lot of Nigerian athletes churning out very impressive performances, and you're like, wow. And in May, seeing so many athletes qualify for the World Championships is really what is very exciting for me, because normally for some of our athletes, it's towards the end of the qualification deadline. That's when we see athletes qualify. But now so many of them have already qualified. We have people like Raymond Ekewo in the men's 100 meters. He's qualified. Favor Philly has qualified 100, 200. Toby Amuson has qualified for the 100 and 100 meters hurdles. Uko in the 400 meters, Ezekiel Nathaniel in the 400 meters hurdles, and so many more. We look at Udodi Onwuzurike, who is also a new revelation, since the Nairobi World Under-20 Championships as well, running such impressive times, because his time was an African Under-20 record, 20.09 seconds. And so you just see so many of these performances and you're like, wow, this is just me. What else are we going to see before the World Championships? So it already just shows that this is going to be a very exciting year, and I cannot wait to see all that is going to unfold. Of course, you look at Botswana's sensation too, Letsile Tebogo in the men's 100 meters, running 9.96 seconds as well, a world under-20 record. And of course, Letsile showed us what he was capable of at the World Under-20 Championships last year. And then seeing that consistency, because of course it's one thing for an athlete to win at a major event, but to now follow that up when you see that, okay, their performances are consistent. So it's good to see that he's following up with more impressive performances in the 100 meters. And then Erion Knighton of the US running 19.49 seconds. 18 years old only. I mean, he's run faster than Bolt even did at that age. And, at a point, Bolt's records look untouchable, when you look at 100 and 200 meters. But now, looking at Knighton, who is just 18, running the 4th fastest ever in the men's 200 meters. Now you're comparing him to the likes of Bolt, Johan Blake, Michael Johnson. And this guy finished 4th at the Olympics, now really missing on a place in the podium. So this year, of course, we're sure he's going to go all out. So Anna, there are just so many wonderful performances this year. It's hard to pick, but yeah, these are some of my favorite moments thus far in 2022.
Let's look now at what's been happening over the last fortnight before we come back to our guest. So, favorite moments, top picks from the last 2 weeks, starting with stadium events. The 2022 outdoor season truly took off in the last fortnight. On 6-7 May at the US Combined Events Championships in Fayetteville, Arizona, Tokyo fourth place finisher Garrett Scantling improved his decathlon PB to an excellent 8,867 points to become the seventh best performer of all times. On 7 and 8 May, results in the classic combined events meeting in Ratingen, Germany, were not exceptional, but the winner, Switzerland Simon Ehammer, who had already astonished when leaping 8 meters 26 indoors, which was the world leading mark going into the long jump competition at the world indoors, better than the specialists. He further improved to 8 meters 30, making him the third best outdoor performer of the year in long jump. Also on 7th May, the Kip Keino Classic Continental Tour Gold event took place in Nairobi, Kenya. Sprinters signed top performances, even if two top contenders, Olympic 100-meter champion Marcel Jacobs and Olympic 400-meter silver medalist Christine Boma, were forced to withdraw due to physical problems, food poisoning for Jacobs, and injury from Boma. But there were also great results in the distant races and a total of 7 world leads. In the 100 meters, reigning world champion Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price started her outdoor campaign in style, clocking an excellent 10:67, her third best result ever, over Egypt's Bassant Hemida, who further improved to 11:02 and is currently 20th on the season's list. In the men's 100 meters, Kenya's own Ferdinand Omanyala set the stadium on fire, prevailing in 9:85 over Tokyo silver medalist Fred Curley with 9:92. World leads also came in both 1500-meter races, courtesy of Kenya's Abel Kipsang with 3:31:01 for the world indoor bronze medalist, while Ethiopia's 2018 World Under 20 800-meter champion Diribe Velteji won the 1500-meter women in 4 minutes 01:50. Kenyan-born Nora Geruto, now competing for Kazakhstan since 30 January of this year, was a clear winner in the 3,000-meter steeplechase in another world lead with 9 minutes 04:95, far ahead of the field. Ethiopia's Girmawit Gebrizair, a world under 20 bronze medalist in 2018, clocked the another world lead in the 5,000 with 14 minutes 49:97. And the final world lead came from Polish Olympic hammer throw champion Wojciech Nowicki, who won with 81:43. And he also broke the 80-meter barrier in 3 other throws in that event. Then a week later, on 13 May, the first Diamond League meeting took place in Doha, Qatar, with 5 world leads. Strong winds unfortunately affected many events. For example, the pole vault competition had to be postponed to the following day and then took place indoors. The athletes who benefited the most from the wind was Grenada's reigning world and Pan American champion Anderson Peters, who threw his javelin to a massive 93:07, setting a NACAC area record. The mark makes Peters the 5th athlete in the all-time list, and his performance is the 15th best ever in a list where the top 9 spots are trusted by 2 athletes, world record holder Jan Železny, who achieved 5 marks over 94 meters back in the 90s, and 2017 world champion Johannes Vetter, who registered the other 4 between 2:17 and 2:21. Other world leads there came in the 3,000-meter steeplechase, where Olympic champion Soufiane El Bakali came out victorious again over Ethiopia's Lamesha Girma, finishing in 8 minutes 09:66 to 8:09:67. In the 400-meter hurdles, where Brazil's Tokyo bronze medalist Alisson dos Santos clocked 47:24 over Tokyo silver medalist Rai Benjamin, who clocked 47:49. In the high jump, Korea's world indoor champion Sang-hyuk Woo cleared 2:33. And finally, in the women's 3,000 meters, where Burundi's Francine Niyonsaba took the win in 8 minutes 37:70 over Kenya's double Olympic medalist Faith Kipyegon, who finished in 8:38:05. Other top marks from stadium events in the past fortnight include the following notable world leads. Among the men, the USA's Chris Nielsen cleared a world-leading 6 meters in Sioux Falls, South Dakota on 6 May. Now, it's true that Mondo Duplantis jumped 6:02 in Doha a week later, but that competition, as we said, was held indoors. On 12 May, in the Puerto Rico Classic meeting in Ponce, Ryan Krauser took back the world lead in the shot put with a huge throw of 22:75. Among the women, Olympic 100-meter hurdler Jasmine Camacho Quinn was defeated in front of her home crowd in Ponce by the USA's Alyssa Johnson, 12:50 to 12:52. Not a world lead, but the fact that Camacho Quinn was beaten is notable. And in the 400-meter hurdles, USA's Britton Wilson clocked 53:75 for a world lead during the US Collegiate Conference Championships weekend, competing in Oxford, Missouri. Also in Oxford, Nigeria's Favour Ofili, competing for Louisiana State University, took a double sprint gold with 11:93 and 22:04, very close to her recent personal bests. And for good measure, she added relay gold. Other notable results of the Collegiate Conference Championships weekend, albeit not world leads, came in the sprints, where St. Lucia's 20-year-old Julian Alfred, competing for the University of Texas, smashed her PB to clock 10:81, shooting up to number 2 on the 100-meter seasons list, just behind Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price. Now, Yemi, Favour Ofili was already known as a talented athlete, taking world under-20 bronze last year in Nairobi, as well as gold in the sprint relay and another bronze in the mile relay. But her move to the US, she became one of the most exciting athletes this season. Tell us more about Ofili's background.
Like you rightly mentioned, Anna, Favour Ofili has been doing a lot of spectacular things this season. I mean, she's on a roll, giving us incredible performances back to back, from one to the other, from the 100 to the 200. And it's just so amazing to see all that she has become in these few years. I remember the first time I saw Ofili was in 2017 at the Nigerian Youth Games, where she won the girls 400 meters. And you could just tell that there was something really special about her at the time. She won the 400, and you could see that it took so much from her because, of course, then she was not so used to competitions as such, but that was her first national competition. And winning the 400 meters was what gave her a bit of national recognition. But from there, it was just an upward trajectory for Favour Ofili, because in 2018, she competed at the National Junior Championships, where, of course, she won the 400 meters, and she went on to represent Nigeria at the African Youth Games that year. And then the Youth Olympic Games, which it didn't turn out so well for her, but of course, that exposure really helped her. And then we could now see what she did in 2019 at the African Under-18 and Under-20 Championships, She won the 200 meters, she won the 400 meters, 4x4 with Nigerian women, you know. And it was incredible because Ophelia running the 200 and 400 at the African Under 18 Championships, she set personal best in every single race she ran, in all of her individual races. In the 200, in the heats, she ran a personal best. By the semis, ran another personal best. Final, ran a personal best in both the 200 and 400. And so it was not a surprise when at the end of the day she was named the most valuable athlete, at that competition, female athlete at that competition. Because I mean, it was just really incredible what she did. And it's always a joy to see that these performances are not a fluke. So if the athlete can always follow up with a string of impressive performances, when you can see the progression, you can see the progress the athlete is making, then you can really tell that the athlete is headed somewhere. And you can see that with Ophelia right now. There is no stopping her. And I was saying to her, I said, do you see yourself like as another Alison Felix? Because of course we all know Alison Felix, who is the most decorated US sprinter of all time. Felix has won medals in the 4x1, the 4x4, the 200, the 400. And I'm like, Ophelia, do you see yourself, as another Felix? And she's like, no, I'm just Favor Ophelia. I'm not anybody else. But I really see how much of a complete sprinter she is, because look at what she's doing in the 100 and 200 as well, There's no telling how far she can go. So I said to her, which of these events are you going to be focusing on more? Because you started out as a 400 runner. And she's like, well, right now she's really just working on her speed, as it were. So whatever she has to do, she's going to do it. But I'm really happy. And of course, there's no telling how far Ophelia can go. I'm particularly happy for her because I remembered what happened at the Olympics last year when, of course, she qualified for the Olympics, but because of the issue that happened with Nigerian athletes being disqualified for not meeting their out of competition test quota and all of that, it was a really heartbreaking moment for Ophelia and other athletes who were at the Olympics but could not compete. So watching her overcome all of that and doing what she's doing today is really a great one, and I really wish her the best. I mean, I can't wait to see all that she will become. So the world should watch out for Favor Ophelia.
And this year, Ophelia broke the African indoor record at 200 meters 3 times this winter, then improved her outdoor PBs to 10:93 and 21:96. Now, Ophelia is not the only Nigerian athlete doing well in the US collegiate system. Male athletes have also performed well over the Collegiate Conference Championships weekend. 2 African area under 20 records were beaten by Nigerian athletes in their first year in the US. Sprinter Udodi Unwuzurike, the world under 20 champion last year in Nairobi, improved the African 200 meter under 20 record to 20:09 while competing in Eugene for Stanford University, and moved into equal 5th place in the worldwide all-time age lists for a place shared with the reigning world champion and Olympic bronze medalist Noah Lyles. In the 400 meters, Ezekiel Nathaniel, who was 4th in Nairobi and joined Baylor University last autumn, smashed the African under 20 record, bringing it to 48:42, and also moved to 5th place in the worldwide all-time age list. So Yemi, the future looks bright for Nigerian sprinters.
I'm really very excited about the future of sprinting in Nigeria, not just Nigeria, but Africa as a whole, because definitely we can see a new generation of sprinters who are holding their own, amongst their counterparts across the world. And I'm so happy this is happening. Although, there's also that there's a bit of mixed feelings, because now we see that most of these athletes who are doing so well for Nigeria are not based in Nigeria. They are in the US, most of them. When you talk about Favor Fidi, you talk about Favor Ashe, you talk about Udodi Onwuzurike, You talk about Ezekiel Nathaniel, Ima Bonguko, and so many of them are in the US and they are doing so well. And you would wonder if they would have been this explosive if they had remained at home. Yeah, there are quite a couple of them who you're sure that would still have been doing very well. I mean, Ophelia, for one, is really very talented and she was doing really well even before she moved to the US. But then, of course, things have also gone a notch higher. So I'm really very excited for Nigerian sprinting and even sprinting in Africa. And seeing what happened at World Under-20 Championships last year was what really ignited this hope. You know, in the men's 100 meters, we saw Letsile Tebogo of Botswana winning the 100 and South Africa's Benjamin Richardson as well, taking a medal as well in the 100. And then the 200 was an African sweep, you know, Udodi taking gold, Tebogo taking silver, and Dambile of South Africa, Sinesiko Dambile taking the bronze medal. And you look at these guys, they are all really young, and that just gives you a lot of hope. You're hoping that they can actually go as far as they need to go in their careers, because of course we know that having a career in track and field is not a sprint, you know, as it were. It is a marathon, and you're hoping that these athletes can actually progress to the point where some of these performances they have displayed here at youth and junior level can be translated, you know, into senior level as well, into wonderful performances at senior level. And of course, we can see some of them already doing that. Ophelia winning a bronze in the 200 at World Under-20 Championships, and now she is the owner of the NCAA lead in the 200 meters, and then seeing what else she's going to do this year. Of course, now ahead of the NCAA Championships, she's a favorite, definitely. And then you even look at people like Asher as well. Asher is 19, he's done a 10:04, and he was not even impressed with that time, you know, which was his winning time at the Southeast Conference Championships, because he was hoping to do a sub 10. And it's good that they are showing that kind of hunger and passion right now. And if they can only remain focused and just do what they need to do, they are focused, they are consistent, they are disciplined, I mean, they will go very far. We have the African Senior Championships coming up this year, although for the Nigerian team, I'm sure that the contingent will be mostly made up of home-based athletes, because of course, because of the NCAAs, those in the US might not be able to make it. But from the African Championships we're having this year, we have the Commonwealth Games as well. We have the World Championships, you know, coming up in Oregon as well. From what these athletes are going to post, you know, at these competitions, I think it will just give us an indication of what we're going to see in the future. And for some of them, they are not even really looking at the World Under-20 Championships in Cali, even though they are still able to make it. Someone like Udodi, for instance, said he's not even looking forward to defending his title in Cali. He'll just want to focus on the Commonwealth Games and the World Championships. So it means that a number of them are actually eyeing the bigger stage, and that is really good. They are hungry for competition, and we just hope that, you know, they can maintain that discipline. And then see some of them making history, setting records, like we talked about Ezekiel Nathaniel in the men's 400 meters hurdles, who broke a 35-year-old record, a 35-year-old Nigerian record, you know, and it's also an African under-20 record as well. And then, yeah, seeing so many of them just post these incredible times after just a short while in the US. I mean, he's done barely 6 months in the US, and then you can just see the remarkable change and improvement. So we just hope that they can replicate all of these performances at senior level. But it's really exciting. It's really something we're looking forward to seeing them reach the peak of their potential and seeing them maximize that potential and winning medals at the world stage. So I'm really looking forward to the African Senior Championships this year, the World Championships, the Commonwealth Games, and all that Nigeria is going to do there. And then not just Nigeria, but Africa as well. We have a new generation of sprinters, and I believe that they're going to get to the very top. So I'm looking forward to witnessing all of that as well as an athletics reporter.
Thank you, Yemi. Now, other international students studying at US colleges have done well this year, and they include Chile's discus thrower Claudio Romero, who improved the national records to 67.02 at Penn Relays on 30 April. Cynthia Lopez, who worked on social media for the National Federation before moving on to another job, but still loves and follows the sport, posted this video tribute to Claudio Romero on her TikTok account. So we're showing it here without the audio to avoid any possible issues with rights, but you can check out the original video directly on Cynthia's TikTok account. And here is the address if you want to look. Moving on now to road events. Several major road races took place on 8 May. Best result among the men were registered in the Barcelona Marathon, which Ethiopia's Yihunling Adane won in 2 hours 05:53, just edging out compatriot Gebru Radahagne with 2 hours 05:58. And 3 other athletes finished under 2 hours and 7 minutes. Now, we've been celebrating athletes from the elite setting world leads and 19 to 20-year-olds registering exceptional results, but there were also master athletes shining. And in particular, Joe Schonbrot of Belgium, a 71-year-old from Maastricht, who on 8 May improved the over 70 world record to a staggering 2 hours, 54 minutes and 19 seconds. Schonbrot, who is nicknamed the Grey Kenyan, only started jogging aged 36, but the world record race was his 75 times he ran a marathon under 8 hours, and he had run the 74th one just 4 weeks before in the Amsterdam Marathon. Check out The Guardian UK for a brilliant article on Joe Schonbrot. Now, Yemi, Nigeria is best known for its sprinters and long jumpers, but Lagos also organizes a marathon which boasts the top level label, the elite level. How popular is long distance running and marathons specifically in Nigeria?
Thanks for your question, Anna. I will say that marathons and road races are becoming increasingly popular in Nigeria at the moment. You mentioned the Lagos City Marathon, which entered its 7th edition this year. That was in February. And consistently, it's held every single year, even the year of COVID, which was 2020. The marathon still held, although the restrictions were quite much because only the elite runners were allowed to participate in the event, but it held, so that tells you how important it is becoming in Nigeria. And now the Lagos City Marathon, even though it's the biggest marathon in Nigeria, is just one out of many marathons and road races currently holding in Nigeria. Right now, we have almost 10 marathons or road races, holding every year. We have this weekend we have one coming up in Okpekpe, that's in Edo State. It's a 10K race, and it's entering its 8th edition this year. And the Okpekpe road race was even the first road race in West Africa to receive a World Athletics rating. That was in 2015, and it just shows you how far we've come. So, in as much as Nigeria has always been known for the sprints or its sprinters and jumpers, we're gradually diverting towards that route, of hosting marathons and long distance races. And now it's also become important to try to harness our own pool of talent in the long distance races. Of course, we are naturally talented in the sprints and the jumps and all of that. But also we have like a group of athletes who are gradually being trained and nurtured in the long distance races. So there's a state in Nigeria called Plateau State, and in terms of the weather, it's sort of similar to what we have, in Kenya and Ethiopia. that high altitude and all of that. And so the runners who come from that place in particular are being nurtured towards the long distance race. Because if we see what's happening in track and field generally, you can no longer just say, okay, this is my field. We're only good in the sprint, so we must remain there. We see what's happening in Kenya, for example, now with their sprinters, someone like Ferdinand Omanyala. Being the current African record holder in the men's 100 meters, like a few years ago, that would have been very strange. Like, what's a Kenyan doing, as an African record holder in the 100 meters? But everyone is diversifying. And so, even we in Nigeria cannot now afford to say, okay, we're just going to fold our hands. You need to nurture talent wherever you can find it. And with the way the world is going, with the developments being made in track and field, you can no longer say, okay, I'll only remain here. So it's also a challenge for us, to try to develop a pool of athletes too who can eventually do well in the long distance races. Because now that the Kenyans and Ethiopians are coming into our events, which are the shorter races, it's also good for us to also try to go into other events which were not naturally considered our events. So yes, marathons and long distance races are really getting popular in Nigeria. We have the Okpekpe Road Race, we have the Abuja Marathon, Enugu Marathon, Ijebu Marathon, Abeokuta Marathon, all of this, as well as Lagos City Marathon, which is the biggest. So that's what's happening in Nigeria right now. And I can't wait to see what our long distance athletes will do a few years from now.
Thank you, Yemi. Let's continue with race walking. Two race walking tour gold events took place in the last fortnight. The first on 7 May in Rio Maior in Portugal. South American athletes continued their success story with the 20-kilometer races won respectively by Ecuador's Brian Pintado and Peru's Kimberly Garcia, who continued her strong showings after her historic bronze medal in the World Racewalking Team Championships last March in Oman. Pintado had just missed the individual medal, playing fourth, but that placing was crucial in allowing Ecuador to earn team gold. On 16 May in Madrid, the races were over the less contested 10 kilometers and saw World Championships 20K bronze medalist, Sweden's Perseus Karlström, win a tight race over home athlete Diego Garcia. And in the women's race, multiple global medalist Qieyang Shijie clearly prevailed over Kimberly Garcia. Now, more sad news, unfortunately, as more protagonists in the world of athletics have left us. Canadian 400-meter runner Brian Saunders died in the last week of April at the age of 69. He was part of the 4x4 meters squad that placed fourth in the 1976 Olympics and also competed in the relays at the 1984 Olympics. Saunders also won bronze medals in the relay at the 1975 Summer Universiade in Rome and the 1975 Pan American Games in Mexico City. US Olympian and writer Kenny Moore died in his home in Hawaii on 4 May at the age of 78. He had placed 14th in the Olympic marathon in 1968 after he was suffering from severe blisters and finished fourth in the classic distance in Munich 1972 after a fall in the early part of the race. But Moore did not only excel in sport. He graduated in philosophy from the University of Oregon, went on to Stanford Law School on a scholarship, then decided not to pursue a career in law, and instead, a few years later, in 1972, completed a master in creative writing. That same year, he also became a journalist, working as an athletics writer for Sports Illustrated until he left the publication in 1995 to focus on his book writing career. Moore also co-wrote the 1998 feature film Without Limits about Oregon running icon Steve Prefontaine, who had been a close friend. He also chaired the Steve Prefontaine Foundation, served as director of the Oregon Track Club, contributed to the overhaul of the US governing body for track and field, and was an active human rights campaigner, both nationally, for example, during the racial tensions in the US in the late 60s, and internationally, in particular campaigning against the unjust imprisonment in Ethiopia of his one-time competitor, Mamo Wolde. Also on 4 May, Hungarian-born sprinter Gerda Varasti died in Point Lonsdale, Australia, at the age of 95. He was a member of the Hungarian 4x100 meter relay team who won bronze at the Olympics in 52 and gold at the European Championships in 1954. After the 1956 Olympics in Melbourne, he settled in Australia and worked there as a doctor. In 2013, Varasti was awarded the Order of Australia Medal for his services to medicine. Rest in peace, gentlemen. Let's check now what is coming up in the next 2 weeks as we reach the end of our show. It'll be a busy fortnight in both stadia and on the roads. The Iberoamerican Championships started today in La Nucia, Spain, and last until 22nd May. On 21st May, tomorrow, Saturday, the second Diamond League meeting takes place in Birmingham, Great Britain. On the 23rd to the 27th, Arab Under-20 Championships will be held in Rades, Tunisia. And there's lots of action on 28th May, Diamond League meeting in Eugene, USA, European 10,000 meter cup in Passe, France, and the athlete refugee team are entered, so we will be catching up with them soon. Also on the 28th of May, World Race Walking Tour event in La Coruña, Spain, and the first day of the gold level combined events meeting in Götzis, Austria. On 29 May, Ottawa Marathon, 31st May, Golden Spike meeting in Ostrava, Czech Republic, a continental tour gold meeting. And on 3 June, Irena Shewinska Memorial in Bydgoszcz, Poland, another continental tour gold. So we're now at the end of the program. It was great having Yemi with us, and thank you all for watching. See you in 2 weeks on Love Athletics to look together at the highlights, comments, and analysis of what's been happening in our sport over the past fortnight, before we move again to a weekly schedule from June. Thank you. See you in the beginning of June. Bye-bye.